Hello, puppies. It is me, Sleepyjuppy, with an episode of Juppy Recommends, where it is I, Juppy, recommending things to you. And the game I'm recommending that you play today is a game called Stacklands. It's a really tiny, cute card village simulation resource management game where you start as a little villager harvesting resources like stone and wood and berries in order to sustain yourself and eventually grow into a big autonomous society that can fight things, get more coins, build out. With an eventual end goal of building out a giant structure. So I came across this game a couple months ago on Steam. It's developed by a group of folks known as Sokpop Collective. They have an active itch.io where they've developed over like 70 games. And you can subscribe to their Patreon to get a bunch of these games as they work on bigger projects. But one of their big breakout hits was this game, Stacklands. I think that the game has a lot of charm and there's a lot to be learned and a lot of enjoyment, amusement to be gained out of playing a game like this. I would definitely recommend this game for folks that one like solitaire and want to see what like a solitaire type structural card game could look like in other formats. Like a joke with roguelites and a lot of game design things just like, oh, like just to make it an RPG except with so and so weird thing with instead like a card battler mechanic being applied to a village simulation. So yes, I think the one really interesting and unique aspect of this game is the amount of cards that you're organizing in order just to keep things clean, because certain cards like animal cards move back and forth and kind of mess up your organization, and then you'll have to build out things like sheds and warehouses to grow out the amount of cards you can accommodate per level. And it's really interesting that what they did with the limiting of the amount of cards you get. You would normally think for any resource game like you could just build out once you have enough resources to do that, but you actually have to grow out the stage. So you start out with enough space for 20 cards and you'll have to build things like sheds and warehouses to grow that out. But it can get really hairy when you start to build out more complicated structures and systems and want to hoard certain materials because you're fighting against the card limit you have. And then you also have to feed your villagers every day. So the game works with the day cycle where at the end of the day you need to feed all of your villagers in order for them to survive, otherwise they'll starve. And then you'll lose the ability to be able to, keep doing things and scaling that. Just because it's cards and like really simple drawings, it's less overwhelming than if you play, say, like an RTS game. And if you do like RTS games, I definitely recommend that you try this game out just to see what it's like on a simpler, smaller, tinier, manageable scale. And it's a great intro for folks that would be interested in trying RTS games, I would think. I think the value of playing these smaller games that Sokpop is really intentional about making is it actually loosens the relationship between people who might want to be game designers one day. And I think that that's incredible because as someone who has developed a couple of games myself, inviting more people into the space can only create like more interesting ideas. And it shows that these games are really achievable in small teams. So Sokpop is getting a lot of experience under their belt, but they're still making games that, as they say, you can play in like an afternoon, play and finish in an afternoon. Other qualities I really like about this game is just how the learning curve feels, because you start out super small, as I said, and then you start putting money into like these booster packs, and you're starting to increase your knowledge of what certain mechanics work. You actually, the first time you play, you'll be finding blueprints that will tell you how to create certain synergies, how to that you need like a certain amount of resources to build a house, that you need like stick and flint to make a campfire. Some of those things are like intuitive and you might be able to find those things out naturally on your own. But there's a lot of interesting things that work in certain ways, especially when you get to crafting and in combining foods to make recipes, because certain foods as you start are only worth like 1 coin and can feed 1 person for hunger. But then once you combine like say a berry and a milk, you can make a milkshake, and that gives you way more benefit than if you had just left those separate components alone by themselves. As you start to build out your village and have your villagers do other things, you can equip them with spears and swords, because if you're playing in the regular mode, there is combat. Enemies start to show up that you'll need to fight. Certain animals you can kill to turn into food, into meat, and at that point you start to see how the game kind of presses you into learning all of the other elements as well. There is a mode where there is no combat, and there's also modes that you can scale how fast time goes by. You can also pause and fast forward the game to your own liking. And so in terms of accessibility and how to approach the difficulty of the game, I think that Sokpop did an incredible job. I think that, there is a certain dopamine that you get when you are putting these cards down. I think they really got the physics and the sound and even the music to feel like you're playing a card game. I think this is a fun game to stream, but you might not entirely get it by just watching. Like I really invite folks in to play the game. It's only $5 on Steam right now. Like it's $4.99, and they're updating it pretty frequently. They just added an entire large DLC where you can go to an island. I still haven't completed that gameplay loop, but it's already showing a lot of different interesting mechanics. Like you only have one villager, I think, to be able to bring certain resources back you wouldn't get in the regular gameplay loop. But there's so much to love about this game. I think for me, it came at a time where there's like kind of really big game experiences. So to know that there's all these little small games coming out is great. I hope Sokpop succeeds in making their games and continues to make these smaller ones as well, because there really is a lot to learn about how games are made with games packaged just like Stacklands is. So other comments that I have: definitely, if this game gets ported to mobile, you can like say goodbye to your afternoon forever. I could totally see, folks on their tablets or on their phones like dragging and dropping all of the materials for hours. I just think that everything kind of ties together really well. It just feels really great. Like when you are able to comment just on how a game feels, and like that is like your most dominant positive reflection on a game, I think that's worth discussing. and yes, Stacklands feels very good. One critique I have is sometimes the text can be overwhelming. Like when you're actively getting new recipes or trying to remember what certain recipe combinations you need to be able to save up for, you're actively working against time, but I guess like that's what the pause button is for. I kind of think there's a way to be able to present the text in a way that's not so oppressive, and maybe I'm not too sure what the solution for that is, but I think there is a way for that to happen, and I think it would make the game a lot better. It would be so awesome. Here comes the suggestion time. It would be so awesome to see what this game looks like with different scenarios. Like if this is the main campaign in this gameplay loop, like survive and then build the final structure and defeat the demon at the end of the game. It'd be cool to see like a scenario where you need to generate a certain surplus of food, or you have to have a certain amount of villagers, or you have to make a certain amount of money. Those scenarios would be great. I think that there's a lot of room for modding as well, so maybe that's already going on in the modding scene, if that exists. But I would love to see that in the bigger overall game. It's $5. I think it's a super great buy for folks that want to try something a little bit new, or casually looking in the space of RTSs or resource management games. So I would suggest this game if you like resource management board games like Machi Koro, or acquiring resources in Minecraft, or if you like RTS games or want something to kind of get you more into RTS game real-time strategy games, you'll find definitely a lot to like here. And in terms of the island update that just came out, like I mentioned before, I haven't finished it yet, but there are already a lot of intriguing mechanics that I think are present with you working with a single character, and the effects of food spoilage. So you can't just hoard food in that mode. They will eventually rot. It's much more of a like, be careful if you're over investing time in trying to get as much food, more food. There's a different resource economy on the island as well. It's pretty cool that you could just go pretty early on in the main game to go there. Maybe it'd be cool if you could access the island separately, and where the goal isn't to come back to the main gameplay loop. It'd be cool just to experiment and play around there. Maybe there's some other intention there that I haven't sussed out yet. But those are my thoughts of Stacklands. I think it's a great little summer game. I'm glad they're still working on it. I'm glad that they received so much success and attention from other streamers and video game content creators, because it's a really great game. I could see it being a game I could return to past just this single year. So I'm excited to see it grow, to see the community, make fan art and all of that. So there's Stacklands. Juppy recommends it. You should do it. So there you go. Stacklands, really nice card-based village simulator resource sim. Have a great rest of your day. Keep playing lots of good games, and I will be seeing you later. Juppy out. Stay solid, puppies. Bye. Take care.